Hello everyone, how you guys doing? Hopefully you guys are having a wonderful day, and today we're here with a Zulrah boss guide for old school Runescape in my endless journey to make as many Slayer guides and boss guides as possible. So hopefully you guys enjoy. If you do, make sure to leave a like, let me know anything you want to see in the future down below, and on top of that, if you want to see more links where you can check me out, those will be in the description down below. But beyond that, let's go ahead and get into the guide. Starting with the requirements for Zulrah, what I would say is the requirement is 80 range, 80 magic, and 44 prayer. 80 range and 80 magic are very important just for the DPS alone. You can get 75 for a lot of the base unlocks for what you'll need in this guide, but honestly, you're not going to get even close to steady kills until 80, so I wouldn't really recommend it. 44 prayer would also be really good, so you can have Eagle Eye unlocked. And in addition to that, to even get to Zulrah, you do need the Regicide quest completed, so sadly, if you don't have that done, you will have to do some questing, and it will not be fun. As far as what you need to know about Zulrah, the weakness is magic and range. You cannot use any melee-based stuff here. The attack style that Zulrah will be using on you is essentially everything. Melee, range, mage, and she will be venoming you as well. And the Zulrah max hit is 41, so it's quite a fun time, and that's why it is not going to be too fun to learn, but it is eventually worth it, I promise you that. A little bit as to why it's worth it here, we have what to expect. A 1 in 512 rate of all of the kind of main price-worthy uniques. We have the Uncut Onyx, Serpentine Helm, Tanzanite Fang, and a Magic Fang. The Zulrah pieces are usually 3 to 4 mil, and the Uncut Onyx is a little cheaper at 1.5 to 2. 1 in 6.5k chance of a Serp Helm recolor, which is really cool, and a 1 in 4k chance at the Zulrah pet. Along with that, 110k per kill on average, so really good GP wise. It isn't as good as it used to be because scales are kind of down with the blowpipe whatnots and bots here. But the reason there are bots and talks about nerfs is because this place is pretty good. As far as the gear options here, on the left hand side we have kind of the lower tiered setups, and on the right hand side a little bit of a higher level setup. Not totally maxed out, but a pretty good setup at that. Most of it is labeled as needed. On the left hand side it comes in probably at 7-8 mil total cost, maybe a little less. You could, I mean, if you wanted to, switch out the weapons, but you're already getting so low DPS. If you're going to come here with anything less than that, I just don't think it's worth your time, and you're probably better off training your account or doing other bosses. The med tier setup is also not too expensive, a nice little step up from the one before it, but it isn't anything too crazy and allows you to get a good boost in DPS. And then finally on the right hand side, kind of the higher level setup here, all of that is labeled, and I mean, as far as the switches, you can bring as many as you want. This is about as much as I would prefer to bring with these types of setups. I kind of scaled up maybe another switch per setup because you're probably better at switching and just PvMing and whatnot at that point. And eventually it's something you'll have to decide. How many switches do you want to bring? How do you want to go about it? It's just kind of a personal feel for you. Some gear alternatives are Void if you just want very few switches. It's not recommended because Zulrah does hit a lot, so the low defense is not good. The Serp Helm is also alright here. It costs money to use, which is kind of the downside, but you don't get any of the Venom downside from Zulrah, so that is kind of why it's decent. Personally, I use it because I just like the inventory space and also not having to worry about Venom, but it's not efficient. And finally, a Twisted Bow is actually a really good way to kill Zulrah. It's not the best technically, but if you came here and just camped with it on in a decent range setup, it actually is really, really easy. And the kills come a lot faster than you would think. I've done it a lot, and it is so broken. As far as the loot per hour that you could be expecting, if you're killing this at a pretty good rate, obviously you have to know what's going on, but if you get down the whole Zulrah killing, 1.5 mil an hour to 1.6 mil is probably doable in terms of pure loot from Zulrah at about your 80s. In the 90s, a little bit over 2 mil, and then at the 99s area, you could probably expect a little bit over 3. This is purely in loot that you can get per hour. It does not account for the cost, so whenever you're adding different things to your setup, make sure that you're, not adding too much cost, because that is the thing here. You can get a little carried away with it if you just like a lot of amenities in your setup. There's a few different ways that you can go ahead and get to Zulrah. Zulrah is located a little bit southeast of Port Tyrus from the whole Regicide quest and whatnot. The first main way that I would recommend most people to use is the Zulrah teleport. You can buy these from the GE, or you get them as a drop from Zulrah itself. They typically linger between 15 to 25k, but I've done a video in the past, and if you can get more than 2 kills a trip, well, 2 kills a trip or more at Zulrah, then it is worth it for you to use that teleport. So if you're new, maybe not, but if you've been doing a little bit, you kind of got the gist down, definitely bring the teleport. The second way is the fairy ring over to the west. The code to get there is BJS, and 76 agility is what you need, or 71 with a summer pie, and then from there just run a little bit east. And then the final way to get there I wouldn't really recommend is charter shipping over. It costs 3.2k, and I would do this from the Catherby Bank, but it is up to you on what you want to use. Again, wouldn't really recommend it, but a possibility. Now moving on to the fight aspect of Zulrah. Zulrah has 4 different styles. The first one is a range-based style that is green, and you're going to want to pray range. The second one is a blue Zulrah that you have to protect mage from. The blue phase can attack with mage or range, and there's no way to know, but mage is the most effective for it, so that's why we'll be praying against that. And the third one is orange, which you don't have to protect melee from. It's not going to help you. You just have to avoid the attacks, or else it will hit you backwards and cause you to be stunned. Then finally, the last style is a jab-based attack, where it predictably switches between one style to the other, just alternating back and forth. It's very easy to understand what's going on. The only hard part is remembering what it starts on whenever you go to kill it, and we'll talk more about that in a second. In addition, you'll need to avoid gas, and there will also be snakelings that appear, which is why I had rings of recoil or a suffering in the gear setups as well. They have 1 HP, so whenever they hit you, they will kill themselves. As I mentioned before, there are rotations for Zulrah. I would recommend to use Runelight and use the Zulrah helper in the plugin hub. You just scroll all the way down in the plugin hub, and you can find the Zulrah helper upon typing it in. It's all clean. You can use it. It's fine. Don't worry about it. It just helps you kind of map out where you are, and it's definitely useful early on to just make sure you know what's going on going forward. Here I have them all listed, and I'll have kills demonstrating each and every one of these rotations, but they all start with a range Zulrah in the middle. You're going to want to run wherever that X is, and that is what that is indicating, down to the bottom left. From there you just mage and kind of hang out, and then within the first 2 or 3 phases, you'll know what the rotation is. It's pretty easy to tell early on. As you can tell on the far left hand side, number 2 is range based, and then on the one to the right of that, number 2 is mage based, and then the other 2 are melee based on the second phase. So you'll either know at phase 2 or phase 4 what rotation you are in, and if you're using this helper, once you knock out the first 2 or 3, it'll tell you what comes next. A recommendation that I would give to learners would be to learn one rotation at a time. Personally, this helped me a lot whenever I was starting to do Zulrah, and back then Zulrah teleports were really cheap, so I could just teleport out, but even now you can still just log out whenever you are going into your second or third rotation and seeing what's going on, as long as you haven't been attacked, which you shouldn't have been if you did all the rotations right. So I really recommend one rotation at a time, so then you don't have too much to think about and you can kind of just go one chunk at a time. Help me out, but depending on how you consume the game, it's up to you. As far as the inventory, everyone's gear will be a little bit different, of course, but I personally have an anglerfish. I always bring this because I eat it before the first kill. It opens up an inventory space for me, so then I can switch to my blowpipe, and it overheals me, which is kind of nice. I have an imbued heart for boosting my magic. If you don't have one, don't worry about it. It's not that big of a deal. You can bring a magic pot if you want, but I don't. A Bastion Potion for range and defense boost, and an anti-venom as well. I actually don't need it in my setup currently, but I switched helms last minute, so forgive me. A few super restores to restore prayer, and on top of that, some sharks and Karam wands. Kind of nice for the combo eating, so I like that. Some Zulrah teleports, and a teleport to my house to heal up and teleport away after each and every trip. So to get there, go however you want to about it. And then from there, once you're going to head on in, I would just pot up and get ready to go. And there are going to be 1 of 4 rotations that you'll be assigned, and we'll go ahead and get into that now. But real quick, before we get into the layer, you're going to want to mark some tiles here. You can do that with the Runelight plugin listed below. Essentially, you'll be in this little crescent-shaped island. You'll start on the bottom middle, and you'll immediately want to start your kill by going to the top right. Essentially, every square here has to do somewhat with the melee phases and where you're going to want to stand for those. The only tile that doesn't is the bottom middle, which is where you spawn and also where you're going to want to stand whenever you're killing a certain mage phase, but other than that, it's all for melee. That's kind of why they're here. Keep in mind, when I directionally refer to the Zulrah charts, it is upside down, so the right side is the west, the left side is the east, the top is south, and the bottom is north. I'm sorry, it's just the way it is. So starting off with the rotations, we will begin with the rotation that has range as the second phase. Every single one will have range as the first one, so you'll never know based off the original Zulrah what is going on. You're just going to want to run to the northeast corner and kind of sit there and attack it with mage. From there, range will be the second one here in this rotation, so just pray range. For Zulrah, you're going to want to attack with mage for the range and melee phases, and you're going to want to attack with range for the blue mage phases. So most of the time you'll be using mage. After the clouds start to disappear, go ahead and run on over to the other side of the crescent with your mage still on. Here you can take off your prayer if you would like, but just stand in the other corner and you'll be good to go. It'll be a little while before he gets over to you. Just kind of throw in gas around and whatnot. From there, once he looks at you, run on over and get out of his little line of sight. After that, do the same thing just in reverse and get in a few more hits before the next phase, which is a mage phase. So prep for that. Beyond that, the next one's going to be range to the south, so just be ready, but you'll be able to get in a good little bit of damage here, and once you get in a nice little bit, just head on over to the other side. I typically just stand next to the pillars because it's the least amount of running, and in particular, some phases it is good for melee Zulrah, but in this one it doesn't really matter. It's just the least amount of running. Nice spot to stand. After this, mage phase coming up, just go ahead and switch back on into your gear and get going. Like I said before, kind of keeping this kill a little short, trying not to mess it up for you guys and yeah, get it all in here. But also have a range phase after that. Every single range phase, if it doesn't attack you at the beginning, it will not attack you at all, so you can take off your prayers if you'd like. The one after this actually will. It will appear to the other side of you, and this one will attack you, so want to be ready for that. But after this, there's only one more phase before we get to Jad, so kind of the entertaining part of this, but the range phase will go at you for a little bit from there. Just go ahead and throw Protect Mage on and head on over here. If you'd like, you can step behind that pillar and kind of hide from her if need be. I end up taking a lot of damage here, but, you know, praying mage, so we're good. Whenever the Jad is going to be on the east side, you're going to want to pray mage, and if it's on the west side, you want to pray range off the first hit. So this is on the east, so we pray mage, and go ahead and get on into the kill. Switch as soon as you see the attack, because then you'll be good to go. Just don't try to get ahead of yourself a little too much, or else you might end up tripping up. But yeah, you're good to go. Just switch between the two. And after this, there's one last final phase. If you make it this far, it is a mage phase that will not attack you. But if you do make it through the mage phase as well, you'll be set back through another Zulrah rotation. But yeah, pretty good time, and that is the first rotation done. On to the second rotation. Again, you're going to want to stand in this northeast corner. We're going to have mage as the second phase here. Once you know it's mage, you'll know the entire rotation. There is no second guessing. Just like the one before, as soon as you see that second rotation, you know exactly what it is. So mage phase is the second one. Switch on over your gear, pray mage, and you'll be good to go. Again, just kind of hang out in the spot. Don't go anywhere else. You might run on into the gas. But once the clouds start to dissipate, you'll want to make your way on over to the other side. And you're going to have a range phase as the next one. So be prepared for that. Switch on over your gear and you'll be good to go. I like standing in the corners again, right next to these little pillars. It's nice to stand one step back in this spot because you'll never have kind of the clouds come out in front of you that you're seeing right here. That's why you want to stand back a little bit. A mage phase is going to be next, so switch on over to that. I always recommend just, I kind of messed up the gear switch here, but you know, just take your time, make sure you got everything. Don't get too into it. I mean, you'll be all right as long as you're doing enough switches for you. You should be good to go. Once the clouds kind of disappear to your south, run on over to the other side, and as long as you're standing in these little squares, the melee phase will not hit you. So you can just stand there and mage it from practically right in front of it, and you're good to go. So that's why the little squares are there next to the pillars. Nice little safe spot. Typically, you don't hit a ton. I'm not trying to hit to make this kill last. But after that, a range phase over here. Hard to see because I have the thing in the way, but there you go. You kind of get the idea. From there, you're also going to have a range phase to the south. So just go ahead and kill this one. Like I said before, it does not attack you after it has not attacked you in the first place. So here you don't have to pray. I just am because, I just try prayer pots for fun. Next phase is going to be mage to the west. So just go ahead and get prepared for that. Not too big of a deal. Again, nothing really too much to be worried about. If you have to, switch on other recoil rings during the fight if you need them. Personally, using a suffering, so that's kind of the way I go about it. But beyond that, just go ahead and kind of hang out here a little bit, and then we'll have a range phase in the middle. And yeah, again, just using the little pillar spots. They are definitely the go-tos in my opinion. Makes you kind of cut down on your running, and you're never really in too bad of a spot for clouds or anything like that. After this phase, switch on over to Mage, and from there, again, we will be just kind of doing our time before we go ahead and get to Jad. Here, I properly demonstrated how you could hide behind that pillar, which I did not in the first rotation, but you get the idea. Again, Mage base phase beforehand, so you know that Mage is going to be coming from Jad as well. It's on the east side. Once you see the first hit come through, just go ahead and switch on over and you'll be good to go. And again, you just kind of have the full Jad rotation there if you want to go through it. Then from there, our third rotation will be noted by the range on the west side during the fourth phase. This one and the next one start off the same for the first three phases, so that's why you can't really tell what's going on, and you won't really know your path. But you'll start them the same, like always, just maging the first ranger, and then from there, there will be a melee in the middle. Here, you can just go ahead and keep on going through it with mage, dodging the hits as need be, and after this one, you will have a mage in the middle. So go ahead and switch on into your gear and then get moving on over. I typically like to run at kind of the same time, so then I can just get a little bit ahead on what all I have to do for the next one. After that third phase, it'll be range on the west. This one is when you'll finally know kind of what's going on in your rotation from there on out. Just stand in that little pillar spot and you'll be good. Won't be in the way of any gas. And once we have a meleeer, you will be in a nice little spot as well. So hang out here, just keep on ranging, and then mage will be at the south hand side, so you want to go ahead and get ready for that. Here I kind of stopped doing a little bit of damage at some point because I want to go ahead and show more of the kill, but you want to walk on in the middle here. That's why we have that tile marked. If you have a T-bow or a long-range weapon, you could just step back to that pillar square over there. But if you have a blowpipe, you're just going to have to tough it out and run through a little bit of smoke here and there. After that, meleeer in the middle, so get back on over to that pillar spot and hang out and do a little bit of damage. Usually can't do too much on the melee phase, but it's alright. Here, I don't know what was going on. Really just kind of scuffed that. Not what you should do. After that, range phase to the east hand side over there, and just keep on going from there. After this, we'll have a mage phase to the south that I'm just kind of prepping for as I know it's coming. And after that, then we will have a Jad phase. So just get in as much damage as you can personally. Not really trying to, but typically you have some snakelings or something. The mage will throw out a little bit of gas here as well that you'll kind of just want to note. That's why you're not standing in front of it and you're more off to the side. And then whenever Jad is spawning on the west side, like right now, he's going to start with range and then just go ahead and alternate again. Every time you see the attack come out, just go to the other style and you'll be good to go. Don't panic, nothing too much to freak out about, but after that, you'll be good to go. Just make your way on through the entire rotation, and once you kind of start to get through all that, make your way on over to the north, back into one of the melee tiles. And then from there, if you end up making it this far, just go ahead and mage the meleeer. I like to use this side because while I do take a little damage during this phase, it allows me to attack the Jad phase longer. Some people opt to go to the other side, really up to you. And then the final rotation, this is going to be indicated by the ranger at the south during the fourth phase. This one starts the same as the last one for the first three, so like always, range at the beginning. After that, second, we have a meleeer in the same spot as before, right on in the middle. Nothing really too much to worry about there. As long as you're maneuvering, you'll be good to go. And then major as the third phase. Again, switch on over to your gear. I like to start to make my way on over to the middle. But, if you're more focused on the gear switches, it's not that big of a deal. Do what you can. Phase 4, this is when you know that your rotation is set. When you have the ranger at the south, from there you'll know what you have have from there on out. You want to stay in the same spot because it is nice, as you'll get a little meleeer right here in the middle. In addition, there is that fog that kind of shoots out there, so you don't want to be in the fog, and you're in a safe spot for the next melee phase, which is kind of the perks of the spot. I got a little baited there by my gear switches. Don't worry about that. Just throw in your mage prayer and good to go. Again, might have to slow down a little bit just to make sure I get this entire rotation in there. But after that, a little mage phase right to your west, and just switch on into your range gear as is. You'll be good to go. Nothing too much to worry about here. Eventually, you'll want to make your way on over to the other side, as there will be a range phase next. And again, just switch on into your mage gear. I like to stand on in that corner because I won't be in the smoke. There's no more meleeers, at least for a little bit, so you won't have to worry too much about that. At least until if you got past the Jad phase, maybe. But after this range phase, it goes into mage, and then it's a lot like the last rotation that we saw, where it goes from this mage phase into a little Jad phase over here. And again, just way too eager and running over. What can I say? But went ahead and just kind of murdered it here because I had already shown before what happens during that Jad phase. So you get the idea. It starts off with range over here, and then just alternate as need be. But yeah, that is it as far as the 4 rotations go. Bit hard to learn, but once you get it going, you'll get it done. It'll be fun, I promise. So yeah, that is going to be it for this Zulrah guide. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure to leave a like. Anything you want to see from me, like I said before, leave it down below in a comment. And on top of that, if you want to see more videos like this as soon as they go live, make sure to subscribe. But with that said, hopefully you guys have a wonderful day, and peace.